Alright, so we got some brake line I gotta put in today. I was out doing something and I blew a brake line on the rear axle that goes to the passenger side. It's just got a single feed to the back, and then it's a single 1/4 inch line feed to the back, and then it splits off into two 3/16 lines to each wheel at a T. So what happened was I was someplace and all of a sudden I had no brakes. So you can tell by the gusher all over. The line broke right at the end of basically right here where the ferrule is. It broke there, except on the other side. Can't really show you. So I tried to crimp it with a pair of pliers, and sometimes you can crimp it and fold it over, and then it'll stop the leak, and then you can have pressure, and then other times you can't. This is one of those times that I couldn't. It was so close, so I wasn't able to stop the leak. So I tried folding the line over right there where it comes into the rubber hose, and that didn't really work either. So now I got two lines to replace, but this supply line was replaced not too long ago, and there's a union in the middle. So being there wasn't really much wrong with this one, I'm just going to splice into the union that's in the middle and then run it back to here and just replace the second half, and then I'm going to do both halves on the axle. So I'll show you how I do that. So I got a little clamp right there that we got to get off. It's almost 13 millimeter, and then I got another one right here. This one loosened up a lot easier. I'm gonna have to work at this one on the driver's side. So what I'm gonna do is I might not have to. I might have to reuse these ferrule nuts here, because or tube nuts, whatever they're called, because sometimes they're different, and you either have to order them or they don't carry them. So what I'll do is I'll get them off, and then I'll drill the tube out, and I'll just reuse them. I've done it before. I don't think it's a big deal, but it's up to you on what you want to do. So what I'll do is I'll just take a pair of side cutters and I'll just cut these lines right off. That way I don't distort them trying to take them off. And then I'll take the nuts out with a socket or something that you can get on there better than a wrench. You can use a line wrench, but unless you have good ones, then sometimes they don't work. I got a set of cheap ones once, and they're garbage. They just spring open and round them over. So that's what I'm gonna do, and I'll show you how I bend a new line after I get this out. So basically I'm just gonna cut the tubes off the nuts, and then back the nuts out, and then we'll bend another tube. So I'm just gonna cut this off right here. That take this nut out here, a bolt to release the clamp, and I already cut it up top, so hoping it just comes right out. Clips above the differential. There's that. So there's one line out. So I'm gonna bend up that one, and then we'll come to the other side. All right, so I'm gonna pull this tube nut out. This is a tubing wrench. This one's a 9/16. So you get 9/16 and a half inch on this. This is a snap-on one. It's pretty. That works pretty good. I already took the one out that was above the axle on the hose, the brake hose. I'll leave that there. Alright, so you're gonna need a measurement for the size of your line that you need. Here's some things you can use. Use a tubing bender. You gotta put the tube in there and then make a bend. They have these that go in 180 degrees. This is just a 90-degree one. I find myself using this more than this now, because if you just kind of grab it and then you can bend some of them with the little grooves that are in there. Pliers, things like that. But when I'm measuring the lines, you can't really use a tape measure. It's kind of a pain, so I use a piece of string, and I just I'll hold it at one end, and I'll just keep fishing it along, keep running my hands along it, and then I can get a length, and then I can measure like where I leave off. I can measure that. So I put like a black mark every foot, so I know roughly how many feet I might need. And you can use this to kind of trace the axle and see how much tubing you need before you go and purchase it, so you don't have to take it off. And that's how I'll measure mine. So that's what the nuts look like after you take them off. I might not have to reuse these. Sometimes you get them and they got like a big, it's a bigger diameter threaded section, and they don't stock them at like the auto places, so you have to like reuse them. These ones I think I can get away with not reusing, because this is the same size. I have these, I got these a while ago, so I don't have to use these. I could just use these ones, which is what I'll probably do, and then I don't have to worry about reusing this. So basically I cut off about 1 inch, so you're gonna figure whatever we measure on that, I'm gonna add 1 inch to it, because I got about 1 inch left on these nuts here. I don't know if you can see. Yeah, so I got about 1 inch left on these ones, so I'll just add that to the length. And we'll put these somewhere. So we'll take this and say just start tracing along. I'll leave that a little long so I get my inch there. Just hold it and get another. So usually I'll go to like a corner, and then I'll hold it. I'll just keep moving along to the next corner. Hold it. Add another inch to that. It's alright if you're a little bit long, because you can always kind of like bend the slack out somewhere. You don't really want to be short, because if you're short, then it's hard to stretch it. But if you're long, you can always kind of like exaggerate a bend someplace.
this. We're 41 inches. So take some of this 3/16 tube. Spot number I got. I've tried the Nycop ones, and I couldn't get the flare to seat right. It just kept splitting and it kept leaking. And I tried using their preformed ones. I tried making my own. I flared it a bunch. I didn't have very good luck at all. It just kept splitting the flare. And it was a double flare, and it just, like I said, it just kept splitting it. So I ended up returning the stuff and getting this. Granted, you have to replace this more often than the Nycop, but I don't know. I couldn't get the Nycop to work well. I mean, I don't know if anyone else has had that trouble, but I did, and I don't want to deal with it. So it's not very fun to sit there and install the lines and then have to remove them and reinstall them again because it doesn't want to flare. I mean, I might have been doing something wrong. I don't know. It was the first time I used it, but like I say, I don't want to use it anymore. So you want to straighten this out. Doesn't have to be perfect, but you want to get it as straight as you can. I usually kind of hold it like this and just roll it along a flat surface. Won't get you exactly straight, but get you close. I don't know if you can see. Yeah, sort of. They make a straightener that you put on there and you kind of slide it back and forth, but they're kind of expensive. You can make one, but I didn't, so. This is kind of how I do it. Hey, 41. And I forgot. Tubing cutter. We are back. Alright, got my tubing cutter. So, measure out 41. About. Go a 1/4 inch longer, just in case we mess up. Give it a little turn, run it around a couple times. A little turn. Just keep doing that, and it'll eventually cut its way through. There we go. That's that for now. So we got to deburr the edges, so it deforms the tube where the little cutter wheel kind of pushes through. So you want to take the burr off. It's going to swell on this side and it's going to actually push some into the middle. So I'll take a file and I'll just kind of file the burr off the outside. is the outside, and I'll use like one of these reamers. Not reamers, but like countersinks, like it's called. And then I'll get the inside with one of these. I use this one mostly. It seems to work pretty well. It's not as aggressive as this. You can get that by hand usually with this one. Sure you don't have any pieces in there. So what I want to do, I want to make sure that the two tube nuts I have that came out of there are the same size as these. I don't want to put these on and have to remake the line. So I want to verify I get the right ones. Which they appear to be, and they are both the same. So I'm not going to show you how to flare one with the little clamp flare things because I hate them, and I don't have, well, I have some, but I don't like them. So I got this. It's kind of expensive. It was 200 bucks, at least it was. It's something now. It's Eastwood flaring tool. You just set it to what you want. So use these little dies, 3/16. So this does all kinds of different ones. Does a bunch of different sizes. It'll do inverted, double inverted, and bubble flares, or DIN, it says. It's real fast. The only thing is you can't do it on the vehicle because it's got to go in a vise. But other than that, it's magic, if you ask me. So if you do a lot of these and you do them off a vehicle, I would highly recommend one of these. You can get the hydraulic ones. Those work pretty well too. But they do all kinds of other types of flares also. But like I say, I got this one. Yeah, whatever one you want. Most people would just use the cheap clamp ones, which they work. I just, like I say, I don't like them. I have a hard time with them. So I got this a while ago. Let's see. So we need the 3/16 dies. Again, make sure you use the right side. I'm going to show you how we use this. It's going to be hard with one hand, but I'll give it a try. So you gotta put the tube in there like that. Okay. this over. It goes in there like this, and then we push that in. So get it in there, get it kind of snug. Just do a little bit so it holds it. Okay. Take the handle. If I can get it out of the package. Put the handle in. And the handle's in there. So you go with OP0. Okay. OP0. So 0 is the setting for the first setting. So what you do is you just take it, and this sets your depth. And right there, let go, everything's set. So now we tighten this clamp down. Now we're going to go, let's see, 3/16 operation 1. You gotta make sure it's tight, otherwise it pushes in. Operation 1, right? Yep, we're on the right one. Operation 1, take the bar over. Operation 1 is done. Operation 2, 3/16. And we are done. So that is why I like using this. So you see, we got our flare in there. Take the die off. Die comes off. And we got a very nice looking flare. Got a little paint chipping, but that is to be expected. So there you go. That's why I use this. So make sure you put your ferrule, or not ferrule nuts, but your tube nuts on, because you're gonna want them. It's alright to forget them on the first one. Tubing nut on. Sure. Take our other tubing nut. That one on. Take our dies. Set it back to our operation 1. Tighten it. Operation 0. 3/16 operation 1. You don't have to crank it, you'll feel it stop. It's pretty easy. Another very well formed flare. So, voila. That's how you do that. So, there's one piece of tube done. So let me show you how I bend them. So now each one of them ones that I took off, now keep in mind it doesn't have to be exact. So I'll take, I'll kind of look at this and we'll see that basically where I cut it was right at the end of this piece right here. So when I oh, maybe you can't see, I don't know what the camera is. You see how I cut it? It's right at the end because I use the long ones instead of the short ones. The cut's basically right at the back of the tube nut. Part of me thinks I should have. I mean, these are kind of rusty, is why I didn't reuse them. But you do get a bigger flare or a bigger nut section on them, or head. I don't know what you call it. Like these, they kind of like round over easy. I'm not really a fan of these ones, but like I say, I got a bunch of them, so I'm just trying to use them. All right. So what I'll do with these is I line them up, and then let me get the brake fluid out of this. All right, so I'll take them. It's hard getting started. But remember when I said basically I was at the end of that, so I'm gonna start kind of bending it. Usually with like a 90-degree bend like that, I'll use this. So that gets us pretty close. So then I'll take this and I'll pick one side and I'll just try to keep this on that one side as I go. And then I'll just squeeze like where I am. And we'll kind of bend it right on top of the other one, if I can. Sometimes you gotta use like these pliers to get a good bend. Like I said, getting started, it's a little tricky holding them. If you have some zip ties, you can zip tie this line to that line, and then you just kind of walk right along and just bend it right alongside the other one. Like here, just kind of push in, pull out. Doesn't help I stepped on this thing like 3 times coming over here, but I say it's just got to be close. It doesn't have to be exact. We'll keep moving along. And you can just kind of hold it. Where it's supposed to be. That's why it helps if you like zip tie it to itself, and then you don't do what I just did and bend it in the wrong direction. So there's that. You can see it's pretty well what it's supposed to be. It's close. Close enough. Me, I can make it work. And this little bit here needs kind of a little kick down in it to go in. Oops, make sure that's where it needs to be. And that should be good. So, I bent that. I guess the only place that kind of messed up is right here. It's a little long. I'll massage that a little bit. Yeah. So that's how I do that. So hopefully you got that on camera. But so I just kind of keep holding it, get there and bend it, tuck it into the corners or the bends, and then just keep going until you're done. So we'll go underneath and we'll put this on the axle. Alright, so I put the top one in. It's a little hard to film. Got the top one in first, kind of slip this in there, and then we'll tighten up this guy. Sometimes it's hard to get started because if the tube ain't straight exactly, then it doesn't want to go in. So. Right size of wrench. Ain't it? Let's see, is it 3/8? It is 3/8. So. Take that. Make sure this top one's tight. All right. So, get it close, and then we can always kind of tweak it to where it needs to be. Yeah.
So as you're putting it back in, you want to kind of tuck it in all the clips that it was in initially. It might not fit in the clips the same way the old one did if it's got that wire wrap around it. So you might have to come up with some other way of fastening it. All right. So, yeah, the line in right there, that's in, runs over the top of the axle, down, and the clip, tuck around and over. Basically how it was. But like I say, you can, this has to be kind of close, doesn't have to be exact, and you can sort of tweak it the way you need it to be. I mean, it's pretty good for me. Like if you had too much line, you could always find a spot like this and just kind of exaggerate the bend, kind of bend it like this, and it'll pull it out, and then you could shorten it. In the same way, if you're trying to lengthen it, you can straighten the bend to lengthen it as well. So that's changing the line. Next we'll have to bleed it. So I'm going to replace the driver's side, and I'm going to replace the line from the middle to the rubber hose up here, and then I'll come back and we'll bleed the brakes. Alright, so this is how I'm bleeding this. I ran this tubing all the way from the rear brake caliper bleeder all the way to the front and up into the master cylinder. So we're just running all the way along here, and we're clipped on right there onto the master cylinder, or not the master cylinder, but onto the brake caliper. So what I'm doing is I'm just pumping it slow and kind of letting it go. Kind of want to keep the line up. Because you want the air to go obviously uphill, not downhill. So I'm just going to keep pumping this along until I don't see any air bubbles coming out. I can see it up here in the front, and I can also see it sticking out on the wiper where I put it. So I've been pumping it for a while. I'm just going to go in slow, so I don't want to blow the hose off of the bleeder valve. Or bleeder nipple, whatever you call it. And let it up. Just keep pumping it slow. You get a lot more push, so the air will travel a lot farther when you're pushing down than when you're letting up. It might come back like an inch or two or a couple inches, but then when you push it, it'll go like 3 feet. So being that the line was all empty, I'm going to do this, and it kind of like circulates the fluid through the whole thing. So it's just a little easier to bleed. I'm pushing it slow like this. I don't like to pump it a bunch of times and then have someone hold it, because it kind of tends to break the bubbles up into small bubbles, and then they can tuck places a little easier. So I'm just kind of pumping it slow. When I have somebody else helping me, see, there's, well, you'll probably see a bubble coming up because I see one down there traveling. When I have somebody helping me, what I'll usually do is I will open the bleeder, have them push the pedal down, and then I'll close the bleeder, and then I'll have them let the pedal up. So we're not doing like a pumping thing. Sometimes you have to pump it a couple times and then let it go, or open the bleeder just to get like stubborn stuff out, but I usually don't have trouble with it like that. There's a couple ways you can do it. You can see there comes a bubble right there, so now I'll let go, lifting the pedal up, it travels a little bit, but then if I get back on it, see how it goes a lot farther on the down push than on the up. So anyway, there's different methods you can use. There's pressure bleeding.
from the master cylinder down to your wheels. There's vacuum bleeding, where you hook a vacuum canister up to the bleeder valve, and then you suck the air out, or the fluid in, whatever you want to call it. And then there's manual bleeding like this. And there's reverse bleeding, where you can pump it in from the brake caliper up to the master cylinder, which, I mean, makes more sense to me, just because air likes to travel up. So trying to pump air or fluid from the top down and get all the air out doesn't necessarily make sense. I think pressure bleeding from the reverse bleeding helps with like stubborn ABS modules too, that you can't get to bleed out very easy. But I'm just doing this and hoping I get all the air out. I don't think I got air into the ABS, because I still had fluid in my master cylinder up here, and I just drained the line. And I figure as long as you have fluid dripping out, then you didn't get air in. But I could be wrong, so I'm gonna try this. If I have a spongy pedal, then I'll have to go back and bleed the ABS. But this is how I'm doing it. So I'm gonna do this for a little while, and then we'll switch over to the driver's side. Normally you want to bleed the caliper that's the farthest from the master cylinder, so you'd want to do the passenger rear, and then the driver's rear, and then the passenger front, and then the driver's front. But I only had to open up the system for the rear, so I'm just going to do the rear. I have to say I'm getting pretty close here, because I haven't seen many air bubbles in a while. I saw that one that came through, but I've been doing this for probably 5-10 minutes, and I think I might have gotten pretty much all of it out. But like I say, I'll do this a little bit while, and then we'll call it. See, I mean, I basically extended the system like another, I think it's 20 feet of that hose. I don't see any air bubbles in any of it, so I think we're probably good with this side. So like I say, I'm gonna do the other side, and then see how it is. Alright, so I'm hooked up over here on the passenger side now. And we got flow, so we'll wait for the bubbles to come. We got one there. So, well, that's kind of an interesting experiment. See, so we'll let go. Now it's traveling back, so that would be towards the master cylinder. It doesn't move very far, even with it right in the middle of an uphill travel. You see, that kind of just stays. I mean, see, it's going. If you let it sit, it'll sit. But I bet if you just start bleeding and you keep going, you won't have to really worry about it. But that's the direction we're going, so don't make a big deal of me. See how I let off, it goes back a little bit. Now it's stopped, the pedal's up. So see, it's slowly drifting back up towards the master cylinder. I mean, theoretically, if this was the line going to the wheel, it would be going to the master cylinder. But being that it's not, it's traveling uphill. So it's kind of an idea, the way to do it. I've had it leak pretty good on the bleeders. These calipers are a little older, so they got some rust around the bleeder, so they seal up pretty good. But I think I've tried it on new calipers, and it leaks around the bleeder pretty good. So you either have to put some type of like Teflon tape or something on there to keep it from leaking, or I think they got like plastic inserts you can put in there with little barbed ends on them. So I'll pump this one a little bit until I got no air out of this one. It's probably not going to be very much, because it was really only the line from the center of the axle to the caliper, so we might have got it all already. So anyway,
Kind of a different way of doing it, but as if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I'll try to answer them, and hope that can help somebody. Leave your opinions, let me know what you think, and have a nice day.